to Resilience Gone Wild. I'm Jessica Morgenthal, and I'm here with my fabulous producer, Kai, and we are so excited to tell you about what we've got in store today.
Yeah, Jessica, it's always wonderful to see you, and you have migrated south, correct?
I am in Florida staring at seagulls all day long.
And I'm in my basement staring at... Actually, I have a really nice view of a mountain, but it's also a very dry backyard. We were talking about we're in a bit of a drought here in upstate New York, so we're desperate for some rain, which is supposed to come at the end of the weekend, but we digress. We're here to talk about Sy Montgomery. I was just finishing up the edit, and it's such a wonderful episode, and you guys get into some really cool topics. And I gotta say, as someone who is coming into flow for the first time, hearing you guys discuss what that means and identifying moments in your life to find flow was really cool and inspiring. And I think especially now, kind of the way we kind of go through events in the world, in our lives, being able to identify those moments and go to those places. Sy, she's going to talk about sea turtle. She's going to talk about manta rays. She's going to talk about hawks. She's a best-selling author. She's got it all together. And so I guess tell us quickly about who Sy is and how you met her.
So Sy is a naturalist who just so deeply connects and gets into flow with any person and any animal that she ever seems to find in her space. So she's been writing books for decades, and every time I turn around, and I went to get them all out of the library recently, and there's like 50 of them.
Yeah, I remember you sent me a photo of
like
you prepping,
piles,
and there's
right?
literally piles of books. There's no way you read all those.
I did not.
But you
and
did.
I had to return them, but it's still on my bucket list of reading all of Sy Montgomery's books before she comes out with another one that I'm always behind on. At the moment, she just released a book about her beloved chickens and chickens as an overall group of animals. And she released the paperback version of her turtle book, and she is swimming with manta rays in Ecuador, last I heard. So it's just amazing to be in connection with her. So I fell in love with Sy when I started reading that book, Remarkable Creatures, I think, which is about an octopus. And then my Kindle or something recommended that I read Soul of an Octopus. So I picked up that one next. And it just it was my happy place. And then I discovered the author, and I started reading every one of her other books. Like I was listening to them, books about hawks, books about her pig that was just her most beautiful favorite pet. And I just became a crazy fan and started stalking her, honestly. So I started a relationship with her by email, and then she was doing a book tour. So I drove a few hours and caught her at a book tour, and we just bonded, and we're just buddies now. And at least, that's how it feels when we're in the same space. So it was really fun to do this recording with her.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear. And you did send me one of her children's books for Miles, my toddler. Unfortunately, we're not in the reading paper stages yet because they will rip. They have to be cardboard or unterrables. But yeah, we're looking forward to being able to read that someday. And so, Jessica, we're 8 episodes in. How have you been feeling so far?
This is like the happiest chapter of my life. I am having, and I have to give you tons of credit, Kai, which I do every time I get a message from someone saying, wow, the episode was so good. And your producer, do you do that yourself? I'm like, no, this was Kai.
There is some magic knob turning on my end.
Absolutely.
I must admit,
and people are like, wow, your voice is amazing. I'm like, well.
There are buttons for that too.
Yeah. So this has just been so much fun, and people are getting lit up, and we have, I think, like literally 2 or 3 dozen already recorded and in the pipeline.
We're gonna get this all the way to June before we reset for season 2. So very much looking forward to everything we're going to be talking about in the coming months, including honey badgers and banyan trees and giant tortoise. And Tasmanian devil. There's just so much coming
elephants
down.
And safari.
Elephants.
And I'm leaving in a few days for safari, so I'm going to be with the elephants myself, and you'll hopefully get a couple of snippets of clips of me out there with.
You will.
With my
I'm
new
asking
friends.
you to take audio snippets of your adventure. But anyways, so at the end of our episodes, we always talk about leave us a review, rate the show. And that is because we got to play the game if we want our show to get into the ears of people who will love it and who will find new breath and a new version of life through the wisdom of resilience in nature, you have to rate and you have to review. So please, again, take a second, press pause. You're already in the app. Just go review, throw us a little rating, and then you're going to help us organically grow this show, because we're not going to dump money into, some marketing campaign or like advertising on someone. Like, we're not going to do that. We're going to grow this from the grassroots, and because it feels like a more genuine, authentic experience. And but
and click download so that it automatically comes up every week, because that is a huge number for us.
The other game we play is stream versus download. The industry only cares about download. So if you have the bandwidth or literal space available on your phone, please download the episode too. But we have had some really fun reviews come through. So I wanted to go to our bag of feedback, and I wanted to read one. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Hi, Jessica. I loved listening to the podcast yesterday. Your voice, the Nature Connect, your beautiful description of the laughing gulls and their activity transitioning into the learning of the flow state, how it helps us along with what happens in the body when we are in the flow state. Examples and practical tools to get into such states and sustain along with requesting the listeners to protect nature is absolutely wonderful. I will surely share it with my friends and continue to listen to more of your podcasts. Emoji rose, emoji fern.
Love it. I've gotten a lot of like this, and we'll keep sharing them, but Kai, it's just been so much fun to know that we're bringing people these joyful breaks. I sent a note out to a lot of people saying, it's been a tough week in the States. And it's always a tough week in different ways for different people. So, to have 15, 20, 30 minutes or an hour, whichever episode you're listening to, of just calm and peace and connection with nature and building up your resilience and joy. Like, this has just been really, really well received, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. I don't know if I'm not going to block it out, but I don't know if you can hear my child laughing upstairs with my mother-in-law, his grandma. So that's been a welcome distraction, right? So enjoy this interview, welcome it as a distraction and from whatever's going on, and learn about flow with Sy Montgomery.
Hello, Sy. Welcome to Resilience Gone Wild. I am so thrilled to have someone on the podcast today whose life, interests, work, and messages have been so inspiring to me. And I'm excited to hear about how you seem to embrace flow so deeply and effectively with all the challenges of our world today. Welcome, Sy. I'm so excited you're here. Thank you.
Well, Jessica, I feel the same about being with you, because when I met you, there was an instant connection.
Totally.
And then when I found out about your work, I felt like, wow, well, that explains it. We're the same soul. So God bless you, and I hope we get to do even more stuff together.
Oh my gosh, your offer is going to be certainly taken up. So thank you, Sy. In between all of your activities and all of your pursuits. So
well, yours too. Yeah, I feel like, man, we are so lucky to be living this life, and I love being home. I love being with my border collie, who you just met on our Zoom. I love being with my husband. I love being here, but gosh, the world just calls, and I'm so excited about at the end of this month, I'll be going to be scuba diving with manta rays for a new book about these giant flattened relatives of sharks who can weigh 2 tons and who live for like 70 years and know stuff and recognize people. And that's kind of what all of my work is about the glory of this world and the powers that animals have, and what powerful teachers they can be to us, even with our only human senses. They are sensing the world in a way we cannot, but when we apprentice ourselves to them, then we can embrace the wider world in a deeper way.
Ah, what beautiful. That's why I love your writing. There's so much poetry that just flows with the depth of connection and respect and awe for the species at its deepest, most meaningful presence. 70 years of knowing stuff. Like, the metaphor just hits me. Like, I'm picturing these huge manta rays that you just described, and you swimming along with them, and like the connection that you're going to make with them. I hope that there's video that goes with this, with like eyes looking at each other, and and the beauty of that connection.
Yeah, I haven't met these rays yet, but I've talked to the folks who are studying them, of course, and they do look right at you. And I mean, talk about flow when you're actually in the water, in the ocean. Talk about the definition of flow. You're literally flowing along with them in the lifeblood of the earth. It's just an amazing thing, being literally held up and embraced by the sea, in whose embrace our whole planet floats.
Wow. Just the word flow as a metaphor, a nature metaphor that you just brought to life. Imagining flowing with these magnificent creatures who are just flowing through the waves and through life with such joy. Wow. Wow. Is there another animal that you've worked with that comes to mind that just exudes flow and the ability to just live life so joyfully?
Well, yeah, I mean, all of them, but as you would, I'm sure, agree, turtles, particularly sea turtles who are in the sea. But I worked, although I did do some sea turtle rescue on Cape Cod with Turtle Rescue League and my friend, the wildlife artist Matt Patterson. We rescued 5 Kemp Ridleys who definitely would have been dead if we hadn't rescued them, and now definitely will live and will live for decades and decades and decades.
Yeah, Loggerhead is the recipient. Every year we get some of those Kemps coming down, and by those little private planes of turtles fly too. People
yes,
who
I love
right?
That.
People who generously give themselves and bring them to a place that can rehab them and set them out into their life again. It's so beautiful.
I love that. But all turtles, as I wrote in my last book, all turtles, I think, are a portal for us for understanding time in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's why I titled my book of Time and Turtles, because I wanted to investigate time. A book that I did before this, The Soul of an Octopus, investigated the other big problem in philosophy, the hard problem of consciousness. The other hard problem in philosophy is considered time. Like, what is it? Do we flow through it? Does it flow through us? Does it, in fact, flow? Does it shoot like an arrow? Does it pour out like sand in an hourglass? What is the nature of time? And I wanted to examine this also because I had recently, when I began to research this, I'm now 66, but I turned 60 and had joined that age class at which, if we're lucky, we get to pursue wisdom. We can pursue wisdom at any time, but so often through our 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, we're so busy with our careers and our families and, kind of building on what we've got. We're not really doing something new. But when you're an elder, when you enter the class of elder, you can do something new. It's a really exciting new time in your life. And for me, I wanted to examine the nature of time because time had changed for me. And little did I know when I began this work with turtles, the pandemic would strike, which eradicated time as we all knew it.
Yeah.
And
what an amazing coincidence of
Oh, I know. I
time.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I felt, I mean, no one liked the pandemic, which killed millions of people, including 2 of my dear friends. But it was certainly an instructive. And it was instructive for me working with these ancient, long-lived reptiles who experienced time literally in a different way. And now that I was disconnected from the clock and the calendar, as was everybody during COVID, when, birthday celebrations, holiday celebrations, graduations, weddings, out the window, 9 to 5, office time, out the window, school not happening. We were untethered, unmoored in time. It was a great moment for me to reconnect with cyclical, eternal time, which turtles know.
Wow.
Because they live not by the clock or the calendar, they live by the seasons, which instead of running out like sand in an hourglass, instead of shooting forward lethally like an arrow, for them, time circles and renews. And that was a wonderful lesson for me, to be with these wise, ancient, patient creatures during a time where it felt that the world was falling apart. And it was also a wonderful time when so many people were sick and dying, and there were, horrendous political divisions which remain today, to be engaged in the work of mending the world. A tikkun.
I'm just thinking about nature's cycles and flow, and the ability during COVID, especially early COVID, to just eliminate distraction, to sit in a deeper connection and let time pass differently. And your poetry, again, of the way you describe that, is just so moving and so important. Thank you for sharing that. And I turned 60 this year as well. And you've given me the, yay. And you've given me the joy of embracing it and the path that I'm taking as earned. That it's time for that deep wisdom to move me down a different path and build. So thank you for that. That's really quite the gift. Wow.
That's great. Welcome to the 60s. It's
thank you.
Awesome.
It's great. We just got to keep moving and keep doing and keep growing and keep being curious and all that good stuff. Keep in flow. I'm reminded of something that I read, some of your writings about scuba diving and your challenges to get in, and the fact that you're going to swim with manta rays in Ecuador and for long periods of time, I'm sure, underwater. And the fact that you got there, that you pushed past the challenges in your description of becoming a calm and capable scuba diver, so that it became an invisible part of the experience, was so inspiring to me, because I was a past scuba diver, and I'm sort of challenged with you as my mentor on just doing it. So can you talk about getting through challenges to get into flow? And that was one, I'm sure, only one of the big ones that you've confronted.
Oh man, scuba diving. Well, I came to scuba diving late in life. Mm-hmm. I was in my latter half of my 50s, and taking the first class, I was by decades, the oldest person in the class, and everyone else in the class had actually gone scuba diving before in some capacity. Some were just getting recertified. Others had taken a learned scuba class in the Bahamas or something. And first, water was coming into my regulator. And that's not good, because that's where your air is supposed to come in. And it's natural for humans to not want to be having air go down, water go down their airway. But I realized the problem was I was smiling underwater, and it was breaking the seal. So I was really enjoying myself. The thing that killed me was my ears, and I still have trouble with my ears and the pressure. But it was, I was learning to scuba dive, not for recreation, but because I was working on the book, The Soul of an Octopus. Mm-hmm. And I had fallen in love with these individual octopuses who'd let me into their lives and who were now my friends. And I wanted to know what life was like in their original home. So that was what drew me to become a scuba diver. And there just wasn't failure was not an option. Even though at the end of the first scuba weekend, I washed out because my ears were so bad, they wouldn't let me go back in. And I became so vertiginous, I didn't even think I could drive home from Boston. But I then went back, and I hired a private scuba instructor who was an older woman like myself. And she was a perfect instructor because she had done everything wrong herself. And she was wonderful. Her name was Doris Morissette. And she was a volunteer at New England Aquarium where the octopuses were. So she'd actually swum in the giant ocean tank. And so we're still good friends. And you just push through it. I have always found, so many of us, it's hard to have the confidence to believe in yourself, to do the stuff that you want to do. And I can't make myself believe in myself, but I can believe in my teachers who are my animals, my animal friends. I can believe in, the humans who are teaching me as I go through each book. And even though I have written 38 books, every time I begin a new book, there's a point at which I think, geez, I am just unworthy of doing this. And how do you get past that? Well, if you can't believe in yourself, believe in your teachers, because they're there for you. And they'll take you along. It's almost like you're in their slipstream in flow.
Beautiful. It makes me think about that we are role models, that we underestimate the ripples of what the energy that we put out flows, and it matters. And to connect with someone as teacher and student in both those roles forever, seeking both those roles, makes life meaningful and worthwhile and well-lived and important. And you just exude that with your stories of Doris and your statements. Failure was not an option. If we approach life like that, with things that are important to us, to just say failure is not an option. What is the next step we can take to move forward? There is no end that has to happen. It's the path. It's the movement forward. There's the flow,
Yes,
right?
that's so right.
Yeah.
That is so right. And sometimes not accomplishing the thing that you set out to accomplish, that's not failure.
Yeah.
That's a lesson.
Yeah.
So failure is not only not an option, it's not really going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Because you will learn the thing that you need to learn. And like with Doris, because she had, quote unquote, failed at every scuba, she'd had everything that could go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She had tried many times to learn to scuba dive. And she kept coming back and coming back and coming back. But it was the fact that she'd been through those difficulties that made her such a terrific teacher and made me not feel like I was such a jerk, because I was having the same problem. Yeah. It's so helpful to have a teacher who has also, experienced trouble, and the idea of, the wounded healer. It is easier to reach out to someone when you understand the difficulties that they've been through. So when this happens to us, when we're having a hard time learning something new, or when we're going through a health challenge, this is making us a better teacher, a better mentor, a more compassionate person.
Yeah.
It's all helping us.
Vulnerability comes up for me. If we're not willing to show vulnerability, we can't make those connections. But if we are, Doris is putting herself out there with her failures, with her stepping stones that took her to success, and sharing that we all have those bumps in the road. That is resilience. And that gives you flow. And these stories are just so, it offers such inspiration that we can all do this. One of my episodes is around sea turtles and false crawls, and that you can't make a mistake, that everything you try, every step you try is either a shameful mistake if you decide to define it that way, or it's an opportunity for learning and curiosity and moving forward on your path.
Yes, that's such a great thing. And turtles are such a great example. At Turtle Rescue League, we were surrounded with turtles who had horrible shell crack injuries, head injuries. Some of them were at the rescue for years. Some of them were so messed up that because of their head injury, they couldn't tell which way was up.
Mm-hmm.
Months and months and months. But I was present at the release back into the wild of some of these animals who had been healed. And boy, does that teach you about resilience.
Yeah.
And the amazing ladies at Turtle Rescue League, they've been through a lot too. One of them, Natasha, as you know, is blind.
Yeah.
And there were times that we had to say, okay, the head of the snapper's over here, Natasha. But you know what? They just never seemed to bite her because of her gentleness and her connection. And I saw so many times when she or Alexia were handling injured snapping turtles, and people think that snapping turtles are going to bite you. That, we would not have a human overpopulation problem if snappers bit as many people as they think, because every other day one of them would be eating one of us. And they hardly ever do. But so many times I saw them dealing with injured, frightened, in terrible pain, snapping turtles who would not bite them.
Yeah.
And who later, months or years later, would show us that they can go back into the wild and live for decades and lay eggs for decades, all because of these two women who helped them.
Yeah. What love can do, right? What love, care, respect. It's a beautiful thing. And you reminded me of I loved your book about hawks. I just was so moved and taken and so educated about raptors and the relationship and the intelligence and the control issues and so much more, and the interaction that you had with all of these hawks. And then, my experience with the laughing gulls and the fun, a very different type of bird who was all about fun and flow and being with their friends. So different. It just gave me such a sense of the diversity of, if we lump together species or groups of species like birds or turtles or whatever, or humans, and we try to say that, things too much is in common, then we miss all of the nuance and all the important stuff. So can you talk to your relationship with birds? It's been a lifetime adventure for you, even though it sounds like your next adventures are not bird related. I imagine they're coming at some point soon.
Well, yeah, I actually have a new bird book coming out in November about chickens. So yeah, I've always loved birds, and birds are
chickens. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Birds are, as you know, what became of the dinosaurs. And as a child, I was enchanted with dinosaurs and devastated that they had gone extinct. I didn't care that there was no Santa Claus and no tooth fairy, but boy, there were not any modern dinosaurs. But that was before we knew that's what the birds are. And so it's, as always, I'm fascinated by our sameness and our differences. And that is the true joy of relationships with any individual, no matter what species. But birds are actually kind of made of different stuff than us, because birds are made of air. And
just process that for a moment, right? Like the birds are made of air versus fluid.
You look at their bodies, and what are they? They've got all these air sacs. They're just full of air. Their bones are hollow. Their feathers are hollow. Mm-hmm. Their lungs are ginormous. They usually have a ginormous heart to propel them. So they're made of fundamentally different stuff. And most birds, although there are ground living birds who don't fly, such as emus and cassowaries and some of the flightless birds of New Zealand, etc. But those that can soar in air are just inhabiting a different medium than we are. And yet, you can be friends with a bird. And what does that mean, and how does that open us up, and what can they teach us? What hawks kind of taught me. Hawks don't like to be petted generally. Mm-hmm. And for most creatures, including octopuses, they enjoy gentle touch. And this is how we show affection to each other. Not just us with an octopus, us with our dogs, us with our spouses and children. Hawks do not like that. So affection as we typically display it is not something a hawk is going to give you. But they are going to give you the joy of serving them. Yeah. And they're magnificent. And they will teach you how to love without expecting something back.
That was one of the lessons that I found so powerful it was the beginning of early on in your hawk book about the types of love, and the type of love that has no expectation, that you just brought to us through this relationship with the hawk. And it's what we need to understand. We need to understand that we can love without expectation, without disappointment, without needing forgiveness, without the pain of a relationship, only the joy of a relationship.
Exactly. And in hawks, they'll teach you that very quickly. I mean, they generally will not come to your aid if you are hurt. They will not generally snuggle with you. They will not show you the kind of affection that you expect in a friendship. But if they allow you to partake of their presence, if they allow you to become their hunting partner, that is blessing enough. And that's fabulous when you're getting to know another creature, because you're entering into that otherness, and you're expanding your heart and your compassion and your vision and your senses in that way, which to me is just an amazing blessing. It's almost like, the Greeks had different kinds of love. Eros was the erotic love. There was philios, friendship love, and there's the love that you feel for a child. But this was almost more like agape, the love that you feel for the holy, for the sacred. Just being alive in this world, the Creator has given us this gift. And he doesn't have to pet us on the head, and he doesn't have to, help us lose weight, and he doesn't have to, oh, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? He doesn't have to do that for us. And hawks don't either, because we are so captivated by what they give us to just witness their magnificence.
But you've taught us the lesson in every one of your stories that by your moving into their world, instead of expecting these creatures or other humans to move into your world, you've opened yourself up to a relationship that is much more intimate and much more respectful and much more real than pretending that others should just adopt who you are.
Right.
And that's
relinquishing that control.
Yeah.
Which, but it frees you. It totally frees you.
Yeah.
To be in the hands or claws or paws or talons or wings or whatever of someone else, and to trust them to show you whatever lesson it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a lesson about yourself. It can be a lesson about them. I mean, a lot of times animals, just by showing us who they are, they're showing us how to be a good creature. And that was the subject of one. That was the title of one of my books. I was asked by an interviewer, actually, Vicky Constantine Croak, a fantastic author. She also used to have a podcast and a video component, a TV show. And she said, you know a lot of neat natural history stuff about animals. Have they taught you anything about your life and how you should live? And the answer was, yeah, they've taught me how to be a good creature.
So beautiful. I've read the adult version and the children's version, and they're just priceless. So many lessons, so much that can change the way we approach our life and live it so much better. So, Sy, I don't want to overstay your availability. So, give us a last brilliant moment of inspiration, please. And
I would just say, go through your day in awe. That you will be able to find something looking out the window or even in your house that it'll just make you gobsmacked with awe and delight, and hold that in your heart for the day. I feel that way every single day.
Thank you, Sy. This was incredibly meaningful and incredibly beautiful, and so appreciate your sharing yourself with us and your inspiration and your wisdom. And
right
I will
back at you.
See you soon. Good luck on all of your adventures. Enjoy.
You too.
Thank you, Sy. Bye. Have a great day.
This has been a production of BLI Studios, produced by me, Kai. Follow along with our other BLI produced shows at balancinglifesissues.com/podcast-BLI. Got an idea for the show? Email me, Kai, at balancinglifesissues.com. And don't forget to stay in touch with your host, Jessica, at jessica@winwinwinmindset.com. Anything else to add, Miles?
Yeah.